Romeo had just finished loading all the vegetables he bought from his neighbor onto his motorcycle to display at the local farmer's market. He took a shower and had breakfast before heading out. If only he had finished college back then, he'd probably be a full-fledged firefighter by now, instead of a vegetable vendor. But life didn't exactly go his way. Still, he had no regrets. He was content living on his own, waking up each day with a sense of purpose. After putting his plate in the sink and drinking a glass of water, Romeo decided he'd wash the dishes later. He was already in a rush. Minutes later, he was driving along the highway, moving slowly because of the heavy load he was carrying. Speeding up would only risk tipping his motorized cart. He sighed as he passed one intersection after another, catching glimpses of people and places that reminded him just how tiring this routine could be. But he didn't have a choice. If he didn't work, he wouldn't eat. Suddenly, his eyes widened in horror. He felt something hit the front of his tricycle. Heart pounding, Romeo quickly stopped and jumped off to see what had happened. His breath caught in his throat when he saw 3 little girls, triplets, unconscious, and sprawled on the pavement. His head spun. For a second, he thought he was going to faint from sheer terror, but he pulled himself together and ran to the girls. He picked them up one by one and carefully placed them inside a taxi that had stopped nearby. "Please be okay." "I don't want to go to jail," Romeo muttered, panic flooding his chest. "God, please don't let me be responsible for their deaths. They're just kids." He examined each child, checking for visible injuries. "Let's take them to the nearest hospital, sir," he told the taxi driver, anxiety thick in his voice. "All right, hold tight," the driver said, speeding off. When they arrived at the hospital, Romeo leapt out and begged for help. The driver helped him carry the girls inside. Luckily, a nurse ran over to assist them. "I need to go with them," Romeo said urgently, trying to follow the nurse into the emergency room. "I'm sorry, sir. You can't go inside. Please wait here for the results," she said gently but firmly. Romeo sighed deeply, pacing the waiting room to calm himself. Just then, a woman came rushing over. She looked like she could be a relative of the girls. "How are my girls? Are they okay?" the woman asked, breathless and anxious. Romeo turned toward her. "There's no news yet, Mom. I'm the one who hit them. I didn't see them crossing. It happened so fast," he said with guilt heavy in his voice. Lerma, the girl's nanny, covered her face and began to cry. "I should have kept a better eye on them. I just ran across the street to buy something and told them to wait. They must have crossed without looking." "It's not just your fault," Romeo said, shaking his head. "If I had seen them crossing sooner, maybe I could have stopped in time." "Let's just pray they're okay," Lerma whispered. "Their mum's on her way. You'll need to talk to her." Romeo's heart dropped. Their mum. He had no idea what kind of reaction he'd get from a terrified, angry mother, but nothing could prepare him for who walked through the hospital doors a few minutes later. Lenny was shaking as she gripped the steering wheel. Her hands were cold with fear after receiving a call from Lerma that her triplets had been in an accident. Tears poured down her face as she prayed her children would be okay. She'd hired a nanny specifically to make sure the girls were properly cared for while she was at work, but even that hadn't prevented this. When she arrived at the hospital, she rushed inside, frantically searching until she spotted Lerma near the emergency room entrance. "Where are the girls, Lerma?" she asked breathlessly. "They're still inside, ma'am. I'm so sorry. They didn't wait for me to cross. They went ahead and didn't look if a vehicle was coming," Lerma said, guilt choking her voice. Lenny let out a deep breath. "Getting mad at you won't change anything now, Lerma. I'm just scared out of my mind. I'm hoping and praying they're all right." Then Lerma added quietly, "The man who brought the girls here, he's the one who hit them." He stepped out for a while but said he'd be back. He better come back, Lenny muttered, her jaw tightening. Even if it was the girl's fault for running out, he's still partially responsible. What if something had happened to my kids? Just then, the door to the emergency room opened and a nurse came out. "The girls are okay," she announced. "They only have a few scrapes and we've already checked their heads. No damage detected." "Thank God," Lenny exhaled with immense relief. "Thank you so much." "You're welcome. You can go see them in their room now," the nurse said. They followed the nurse down the hall to the assigned room. Inside, the triplets were already awake. Lenny rushed to them, pulling each of her daughters close and kissing their foreheads. "You three scared me half to death," she whispered emotionally. "We're okay, Mommy," said Julie. "We didn't really get hit hard, just bumped by some of the stuff loaded on the tricycle." "We're sorry, Mommy. We won't do it again. We didn't mean to make you worry so much," added Mia. "Just promise me you'll always stay with Ms. Lerma, okay? Don't cross the street on your own. I don't ever want anything bad to happen to you," Lenny said, finally allowing herself a relieved smile. "Yes, Mommy," said Rona. Just then, the door opened and Lerma came in, but what stunned Lenny was the man who followed behind her. "Romeo? What are you doing here?" Lenny asked, visibly shocked. "He has something to tell you," Lerma replied. Romeo couldn't believe they were seeing each other like this, after all this time, after everything that happened between them. He studied her face, realizing how much more mature she looked now. "Can we talk?" Romeo asked. "Sure, let's go outside," Lenny said, smiling politely as she signaled to the triplets that they'd just be stepping out. But as they exited, she noticed Julie staring at Romeo with a strange kind of familiarity, as if she sensed something. They sat down in the hospital's quiet waiting area. Lenny glanced down the hallway, but Romeo caught her looking and smiled. "It's such a small world. How have you been, Lenny? From the looks of it, you're doing well for yourself," Romeo said with a gentle smile. "I'm doing okay, still the same old me. Just with more responsibilities now," she answered. "I was shocked when I realized I hit your kids. I'm so sorry," he said, voice heavy with guilt. "Now I get why you were here," Lenny thought to herself. "Maybe fate brought you here. Maybe it's time you knew the truth about the children you never knew existed." "They're fine. Kids can be stubborn sometimes," she replied with a smile. Romeo blinked, trying to make sense of what he'd just heard. "Did you say, your kids? As in, our kids?" "Yes," she said. "They're our daughters. I didn't know I was pregnant when we broke up. I only found out after." Romeo's face lit up with the biggest smile. He'd never imagined he'd become a father, much less to 3 beautiful girls. But now he had the chance. Still, a pang of shame tugged at him. What could he possibly offer his children? "Really?" he said in disbelief. "I'm a dad? That's amazing." Overwhelmed, he suddenly pulled Lenny into a hug without warning. When he realized what he'd done, he quickly let go and apologized. He didn't know what had just come over him, but his heart was racing. Somehow all the feelings he once had for her came rushing back. Maybe the saying was true. Love never really goes away. Maybe it just waits. "Come on, I want to introduce you to them," Lenny said with a smile. Romeo nodded, unsure of what to feel. Excited, nervous. He stood and followed her back to the room, anxious about how the triplets would react. "Daddy, I knew it was you," Julie said with a big grin. Romeo smiled. He wasn't the emotional type, but right then, he wanted to cry. He moved toward the girls and hugged all 3 of them. "It's true, I'm your daddy," he said, looking at Lenny, who was now smiling sweetly back at him. Lerma stood in the doorway, shocked. She'd always believed the kids had no father, but now it all made sense. "We do look like Daddy," Rona said. Julie's been saying it since earlier. Your mom just told me today. I came here because I wanted to meet you. And also because I hit you with my cart. I'm really sorry, Romeo said sadly. Good thing you did, though, Mia replied brightly. Otherwise we wouldn't have met you. Mommy never told us anything. Well, what's important is we're here now, Romeo said, looking tenderly at them. And don't be mad at her, okay? The girls beamed and wrapped their arms around him. Romeo decided then and there he was going to stay the night at the hospital. The girls would probably be discharged tomorrow anyway. Lenny agreed, and when she tried to leave the room, Lerma pulled her aside. I just need to talk to you, Lerma said, peeking inside the room before stepping out with Lenny. What is it? Lenny asked, raising a brow. I just can't believe that man is the kid's father, Lerma said, half laughing. Lenny smiled and explained everything, from how she and Romeo met in college to how things ended. Slowly, Lerma believed her. By the afternoon, Romeo was still at the hospital. The triplets refused to let him leave. Watching them made Lenny's heart ache with guilt. Romeo had missed out on so much. Still, he never showed any anger toward her for keeping the truth. Life had simply moved them apart, and they had lost all contact. Romeo later told her he had to step out, but would return. When he came back around 6 p.m., he brought dinner for all of them. They ate together, the triplets laughing as they fed their dad. Lenny felt her heart twist with guilt again. She'd never done this for her daughters, not like this. She'd been too busy working for their future, but the look of joy on their faces, it was priceless. Lenny glanced at the ceiling just as Romeo caught her looking at the girls. After they finished eating, Romeo tucked the triplets into bed. It was already late. He told Lerma to head home so there would be someone at the house. It would just be him and Lenny watching over the girls tonight. Get some sleep too, Lenny. You can use the empty bed over there so you'll be more comfortable, Romeo said gently. What about you? Lenny asked. Don't worry about me. I'm not sleepy yet and I'll watch over the girls, Romeo replied with a smile. She looked at him, unsure why she felt nervous. She hadn't heard anything about Romeo's personal life in years. There was always that lingering question. Did he get married? Have kids? She raised an eyebrow when Romeo suddenly laughed. What's so funny? She asked. I never got married after we broke up, never even had a girlfriend. I was too embarrassed to date because I didn't have a real job. I didn't finish school. And besides, there's only ever been one woman in my heart, he said softly. Lenny sighed, a mix of sadness and guilt washing over her. It's okay if you didn't finish school. That doesn't define who you are, and it's never too late, right? She smiled and added, What matters is having direction. In a relationship, it's about lifting each other up. Romeo admired her. She hadn't changed at all. I still wish I had graduated. I really wanted to become a firefighter, but life had other plans, he said, shaking his head. She reached out and patted his shoulder, and he felt a jolt shoot through his body. It's okay, there's still time. Maybe your dreams can still come true. Just don't give up, Lenny said, encouragingly. Romeo smiled as he held her hand for a moment. When Lenny began to feel sleepy, she excused herself and got ready to lie down. The next morning, Romeo woke up to someone shaking his shoulder. When he opened his eyes, his triplets greeted him with big smiles. Good morning, Daddy. Wake up. We're ready to go, said Julie. All right, Romeo replied, sitting up slowly. He noticed they were alone in the room. Where's your mom? Nanny's already waiting for us outside, Mia said. Is everything ready? He asked. Yes, Daddy, we've already been discharged. You were sleeping so well, we didn't want to wake you, Rona replied. Okay, where's your mom? Already headed to work. We'll just go with you, Mia said cheerfully. Sure, are you okay with riding the motorcycle? Romeo asked. Yes, Daddy, Julie answered, excited. He just wanted to make sure. They were used to riding in a car, after all. It might be a bit different with him. He helped the girls climb onto the trike, then helped Lerma before starting the engine. A few minutes into the ride, the triplets' faces lit up with joy. Are you happy? Romeo asked with a grin. Yes, Daddy, Julie replied. Looks like it, Romeo said, laughing. Can we sleep over at your place sometime, Daddy? Mia asked. Oh no, my place is full of mosquitoes. You might get bitten, he teased. And it's hot there, no air conditioning. That's okay, Daddy. What matters is we're with you, Rona said. Romeo felt touched. His girls were so sweet and loving. He had to hand it to Lenny. She had raised them well. Really? Then ask your mom if you can come over sometime, maybe during the weekend, Romeo replied. The girls laughed in delight at his answer. His place was simple but decent. If Lenny said yes, it'd be a great experience for them. But if not, he'd understand. The ride took about an hour before they arrived at Lenny's house. Romeo felt awkward when he saw how big and beautiful her home was. He suddenly felt small, like he didn't belong. He helped the triplets down, making sure they didn't fall, and saw the joy in their eyes from being with him. Come inside, Daddy. Have some coffee and breakfast first, Julie said. I still have to open my stall at the market. I'll come back tonight, Romeo replied. Promise? Mia asked. Of course, Romeo said. The girls nodded, though their smiles faded a bit. They didn't want him to leave. Before going, Romeo hugged all three and kissed them on the forehead. Later that afternoon, as Lenny got ready to leave work, Lerma called to say the girls were already home. After the accident, Lenny had realized something important. Her children had to come first, no matter what. That's why she told Romeo the truth about the triplets. Life was too short. She wanted to go home early to take care of them. But before she could leave the office, Bea stopped her. You're heading home already? Let's swing by the market first, Bea suggested. Maybe some other time. You know what happened to my girls. I need to get home early, Lenny replied. Come on, just this once. I'm craving vegetables, Bea said, putting on a cute face. Fine, but let's make it quick. I really have to get home, Lenny sighed. They left the building together. Just before getting in the car, Jody, one of the poshest girls in their office, linked arms with them. Where are you two headed? Can I come? Jody asked. We're going to the market. That's not really your scene, Bea said with a smirk. I'm still coming. I want to buy some fruit, Jody insisted. Pretty sure your kind of fruit doesn't come from a local market, Bea muttered. I might be fancy, but I'm not picky, Jody replied confidently. They all exchanged glances as Jody slipped into the driver's seat. For someone who could drive, she still had a chauffeur. Perks of growing up wealthy. When they arrived at the market, Jody parked the car, and they stepped out. The place was packed. Hopefully, there were still vegetables left. As they entered the market together, Lenny smiled. There were plenty of fresh vegetables still on display. But she froze when she saw Romeo from a distance. He was selling vegetables. She approached slowly, watching him chat with customers, unaware of her presence. When she glanced at Jody, she noticed the woman was smiling flirtatiously at Romeo. Lenny elbowed Bea. Romeo finally looked up. Hey, Lenny, buying veggies? Lenny didn't respond right away. She was staring at him. He hadn't changed, still as handsome as ever. No wonder Jody was smitten. She snapped back to reality when Bea pinched her side. Huh? Oh yeah, she answered. You two know each other? Jody asked. He's the father of my kids, Lenny said bluntly. Romeo smiled at her words. There was no point hiding anymore. He was the father of her triplets. She had no regrets about their past. Romeo had been a loving boyfriend. They only separated because of misunderstandings, not lack of love. "Really? No wonder your daughters are so beautiful. Look at their dad," Jody said, clearly thrilled. She giggled as she spoke, her eyes not leaving Romeo. Romeo didn't respond to the compliment. Instead, he turned to Lenny with a soft smile. "Go ahead and pick out what you want." "All right," Lenny replied, but deep down she didn't like the way Jody was acting around Romeo. Still, she began selecting vegetables, and Romeo helped her bag them. Bea discreetly pulled Jody toward the fruit section, clearly understanding that the two needed some space to talk. "Are you heading home after this?" Romeo asked. "Yeah, the girls are probably wondering where I am," Lenny answered. Once she finished picking out what she needed, she handed everything to Romeo so he could bag it. She reached into her purse to pay, but he refused the money. "No need to pay, Lenny. Don't treat me like a stranger. Wait here. I'm going to grab some fruit for the kids," Romeo said warmly. She was surprised when he took her hand and walked with her toward the fruit stall. Her heart skipped a beat at the simple gesture. Then she noticed Jody was still clinging to Romeo's side like glue. Lenny's jaw clenched. She didn't want to admit it, but she was jealous. She forced herself to smile and act normal when Romeo returned to his stall. After thanking him, she turned to leave, not realizing Bea and Jody had followed. She told herself she had no right to be jealous. It had been years, but deep down, she wondered, had her feelings really disappeared? "What did you end up buying?" Lenny asked as they walked away. "Veggies, and Jody picked out some fruit," Bea said. "You left so quickly, I didn't even get to browse through Romeo's stuff." "Ex-boyfriend, Bea. We broke up a long time ago," Lenny clarified. "So, your ex is single?" Jody chimed in with a coy smile, clearly intrigued. Lenny regretted not letting Bea believe Romeo was her husband. Now Jody was more interested than ever. Lenny frowned as she loaded her groceries into the car. "I don't know if he's single. We lost touch after we broke up. I only found out recently that he's the father of my girls." "Well, I think I like him," Jody said, giggling. Bea rolled her eyes. "You don't even know him. And isn't it girl code not to go after a friend's ex?" Jody pouted, but didn't say anything else. When they reached Bea's house, she and Jody got out. The gate was already open, so Lenny pulled in. But her brow furrowed when she saw the triplets sitting on the porch steps. They stood up as soon as they saw her and ran to greet her. "Are you okay? Why are you out here?" Lenny asked. "We're waiting for Daddy," Mia said. "He said he'd come back later." "He's still at the market. I actually saw him there," Lenny said. "Did he say he's coming here tonight?" Julie asked excitedly. "He didn't say anything, but he did send some fruit for you guys," Lenny replied. "Oh, that's kind of sad." Rona sighed. "Go on inside. Wait for him there. From what I know about your dad, he keeps his word," Lenny said with a smile. The triplets nodded and followed her inside. Lenny sighed. She hoped Romeo wouldn't let the girls down. Moments later, they rushed back to the door when they heard a motorcycle pull up. "That's Daddy," Rona said. "I knew it. I recognized the sound of his bike," Mia added. "Let's go meet him," Julie cheered. Lenny stayed inside and headed straight to the kitchen to put away her groceries. Meanwhile, Romeo was all smiles as he got off his motorcycle, greeted by the sweetest little faces. He felt proud, like he was finally living a life he could be proud of. He had wonderful kids who actually looked like him. He laughed when all three hugged him at once, nearly knocking him over. "Easy, easy. Looks like you really missed me," Romeo said with a chuckle. "Sorry, Daddy. We thought maybe you weren't coming back," Julie said. "I told you I'd be back, didn't I? I just got caught up at the market. Lots of customers," he explained. "Thanks, Daddy. Let's go inside," Rona said, taking his hand. Romeo nodded, one arm held by Mia and Julie, while Rona grabbed the bag of roast chicken he'd brought. "Has your mom come home yet? I saw her at the market earlier," Romeo asked. "She's in her room," Mia answered. "Let's go straight to the kitchen then and eat," he said. The girls agreed and ran inside ahead of him. He sent them to call their mum for dinner. A few minutes later, Lenny entered the kitchen, her smile wide and warm. "Just got back from the market?" she asked. "Yeah, haven't even been home yet. Came straight here since I figured the girls would be waiting," Romeo replied. "Sorry if they pressured you into coming here right away. You didn't even get a chance to rest or change clothes. You're still sweating," she said apologetically, wiping his forehead with her handkerchief. They both paused, suddenly aware of how close they were. "It's okay. I was planning to head home tonight anyway," Romeo said. "You're not staying?" Julie asked, disappointed. "I'll stay a little longer. Let me rest here for now," Romeo replied with a smile. "Just sleep here, Daddy," Mia offered. "Only if it's okay with your mum," Romeo said, glancing at Lenny. She smiled and shrugged. "She didn't say no, so I think that means it's okay," Rona answered happily. Romeo nodded. Truthfully, it was more convenient to stay. His body ached from a long day of selling vegetables and the long ride. He quietly began helping the girls with dinner. Lenny smiled from across the table as she watched Romeo take care of their daughters. After the meal, the girls left the kitchen to work on a school project, leaving Lenny and Romeo alone. "If you're sleeping here tonight, I've got some clothes upstairs you can borrow. Just head home in the morning. The girls will probably still want you around," Lenny said. "All right, I guess that's okay with you?" Romeo asked, his voice a little uncertain. She nodded. "Of course, you're not a stranger," she replied with a soft smile. "That's funny. I said the same thing earlier," Romeo said with a laugh. They both chuckled. After Lenny washed the dishes, they left the kitchen together. "Where's Lerma, by the way? Haven't seen her all day," Romeo asked. "She doesn't stay overnight. She's got a little one of her own to care for," Lenny answered. "Is that so? Now that I'm here, Lerma won't have to stress about watching the girls. I'll handle picking them up and dropping them off," Romeo offered. "Thank you. It's been tough balancing work and parenting. Sometimes I feel like I'm missing out on their lives," Lenny admitted. Romeo smiled and reached for her hand. "Let's help each other out." For our family, Lenny's heart skipped a beat at his touch. A flood of memories from their past came rushing back. "Of course," she said softly. "You should get some rest. There's an extra room upstairs. You'll sleep better there." Romeo nodded, and they walked up the stairs together. Lenny glanced sideways at him, taking in his familiar face. Since they broke up, she'd never dated anyone else. She'd been too focused on raising their kids. Romeo was the only relationship that had truly mattered to her. Maybe fate really did have a reason for bringing them back together, not just so he could know the girls, but maybe for something more. She showed Romeo to the guest room and let him settle in. Then she went to her own room to grab a set of clothes he could change into. When she returned, Romeo was no longer in the guest room. She heard his voice coming from the girls' room. She peeked through the slightly open door and saw him helping the triplets with their homework. Smiling, she entered and handed him the clothes. "Thanks, honey," Romeo said casually. Lenny's heart skipped a beat at the old term of endearment. She wasn't sure if he meant to say it, or if it just slipped out naturally. When she looked at the triplets, they were all grinning at her like they'd heard something sweet. "Go ahead and change first, Romeo." "You can finish that later," she said, steering the conversation in a new direction. "All right," he agreed. Lenny stepped out to rest for a while. She had work the next morning. Romeo changed clothes in the triplets' bathroom, then continued helping them with their assignment. "Daddy, can I ask you something?" Julie said. "Sure, sweetheart," Romeo replied. "Why did you and Mommy break up?" she asked. Romeo sat up straight, caught off guard. He wasn't sure how to answer, but the question was sincere, so he decided to respond with honesty, in a way kids could understand. "Well, not all relationships are perfect. Sometimes people separate, but what matters is your mom and I are friends now," he said, with a gentle smile. "But Daddy, do you still love her?" Mia followed up. "Of course, I love her very much," Romeo answered sincerely. When he first saw Lenny again and found out they had children, his heart had been overwhelmed. He'd missed everything, her pregnancy, their childhood, but she never blamed him for it. That alone meant a lot. "Do you still love Mommy now, Daddy?" Rona asked. Romeo swallowed hard. He hadn't expected that question either. He hadn't prepared himself for this conversation. "Love doesn't just disappear. So yes, I still love your mom," he answered honestly. The triplets squealed with joy at his answer. If Lenny heard them now, he'd be in trouble. But he didn't care. It was the truth. His love for her never really left. She was the only woman who made him feel something real. "Then you should win her back, Daddy, so we can be one big happy family," Rona said with a grin. "If that happens, we'd be the happiest girls in the world," Julie chimed in. "Mommy doesn't have a boyfriend. I don't think she even goes out on dates," Mia added. Romeo laughed softly. "All right, I'll try, but don't get your hopes up too high. My charm might not work on your mom anymore." The girls giggled and told him he could totally do it. Romeo just smiled and pulled them into a hug. Their joy meant everything to him. After finishing their homework, he tucked them into bed. He needed rest too. The veggies had sold out today, and tomorrow he had to restock. The next morning, Lenny came out of her room, showered and dressed for work. She headed to the kitchen with her sling bag and lunch container, and found Lerma washing dishes. "Good morning, Lerma," she greeted. "Good morning to you too," Lerma replied. "Where are the girls?" Lenny asked. "Already at school. Romeo took them," Lerma replied. "That early?" Lenny asked, surprised. "I got here around 7:30. Everything was already done. Even your lunch was packed," Lerma said with a knowing smile. "Romeo made it." Lenny blinked. "He cooked?" "Yeah, he's so sweet. That's the kind of man you should marry. You'd be so happy," Lerma teased. Lenny sighed. Romeo had always been like that. Back in college, even with his busy schedule, he'd cook for her. Maybe she hadn't taken care of their relationship enough back then. Over time, things just got toxic. Miscommunication grew between them. That's how real life works sometimes. "I haven't met anyone like Romeo since," Lenny admitted. "So that's why you've never married or dated?" Lerma asked. "Maybe. I'm scared we'd just end up fighting all the time again," Lenny replied. "Maybe it's because you still love him," Lerma said. "Do you?" "I don't know. Maybe I'll just let fate decide," Lenny replied. But someone had to make the first move. What if Romeo didn't want her back? That would be even more humiliating. Lenny started eating breakfast before she got too caught up in emotions. When she was done, she stood up and picked up her plate, but Lerma took it from her. Before placing it in the sink, she glanced inside her lunchbox and smiled. Fried eggs, beef loaf shaped like a cat, and chicken adobo, Romeo's signature comfort food. He hadn't changed. He still made her smile. After saying goodbye to Lerma, Lenny hurried out the door. She opened the gate and was surprised to find Romeo waiting there with a big grin, sitting on a sleek, new-looking motorcycle. "Need a ride, Lenny?" he said, handing her a helmet. "Is this new?" she asked. "Nope. Had it for a year. Just don't use it much. I usually take the tricycle to haul vegetables," Romeo replied. Are you sure? Won't this make you late for the market? She asked. I'll go any time, as long as it's for you, he said with a playful wink. Lenny couldn't help but smile. Romeo got off the bike, put the helmet on her, and started the engine once she climbed on. This is my first time riding one of these. It's pretty nice and breezy, she commented. I never had a motorcycle before, so I couldn't take you riding. You didn't ride with any of your other boyfriends, did you? Romeo teased. As they drove past shops and homes, Lenny replied, I didn't have any other boyfriends after we broke up. I was busy working and pregnant. Romeo smiled, visibly relieved. Really? That makes me the last. How many girls have you had ride behind you? Lenny asked playfully. Only you. I never had another girlfriend. I was too busy with life, Romeo replied. She smiled. Romeo had always been serious about relationships. He never played around with women's hearts. So, were you lonely all these years? She asked. Not really. What made me sad was not finishing college or becoming a firefighter, not being single, he answered. You'll still make your dreams come true. Just believe in yourself, Lenny said, placing a hand on his shoulder. Romeo reached back and held her hand tightly. Hold on to my waist. Don't want you to fall, he said. She wrapped an arm around him, and just like that, the emotions rushed back. The way he still made her feel, that hadn't changed. He was still the one her heart beat for. After about 30 minutes, they arrived at Lenny's office building. Romeo stopped the motorcycle, and she got off first. He followed and helped her remove the helmet. They were close, face to face. Good thing they were still wearing helmets. Thanks for the ride, Romeo, she said softly. No problem. Be safe, he replied. Before she could say anything else, Romeo pulled her into a quick hug. She stood there for a moment, watching as he drove away. Then she hurried into the building, her heart still racing. Who dropped you off? You're glowing today, Bea teased as Lenny walked into the office. Romeo, Lenny replied with a smile. Ah, that explains it, Bea grinned back. Lenny placed her sling bag and lunch container down and sat beside Bea. Her brow furrowed when she noticed Jody smiling while staring at her phone. Clearly, the girl was giddy over whoever she was chatting with. That wasn't like her. Lenny couldn't help but ask. What's going on over there? You look like you're about to burst, she said. I don't even know anymore. She said she's texting your Romeo, Bea replied. What? He's not mine, Bea, Lenny said calmly. He has every right to date anyone he wants. But the truth was, her stomach twisted. She was boiling inside with jealousy. Then she remembered. Romeo didn't even have a phone the last time she saw him. She'd never seen him with one. She glanced at Jody, whose smile was almost smug. Lenny didn't want to believe Romeo was the one she was texting. Look at her. She's acting different today, Bea murmured. I know, Lenny said flatly. She couldn't concentrate on her work that day. She was restless, frustrated, and annoyed. At Jody, yes, but more so at herself for caring so much. She had no right to be jealous. Later that afternoon, Lenny was shocked to see Romeo waiting for her outside the building. Got any plans? He asked. Let's just go home, she answered, barely meeting his eyes. She watched his expression closely. He seemed calm, not fidgety, not nervous, like someone with nothing to hide. And true enough, he didn't have a phone on him. Going somewhere? Bea asked as they were about to leave. Just heading home, Lenny replied shortly. They exchanged glances. Bea subtly looked over at Jody, who was just stepping outside too. Lenny noticed the girl's smile had disappeared and was replaced with a blank, almost bitter expression. She had a feeling Jody wasn't pleased to see Romeo with her. Bea giggled when she saw Romeo helping Lenny with her helmet again. That made her blush. Minutes later, they were on the road again. Just like before, Romeo told her to hold on to his waist. "It feels so nice when we're like this, Lenny," Romeo said. "Why?" she asked, a little nervous. "Because even though life is hard and exhausting, moments like this make it feel a little lighter," he replied. "Yeah, it's hard, but there are good times too," Lenny added. "Absolutely." After a while, Lenny furrowed her brows. The road they were taking wasn't leading home. "Wait a second, this isn't the way home," she pointed out. "That's because we're not going straight home. We're making a stop first," Romeo said. "Where are we going?" she asked. "You'll see when we get there." After some time, the motorcycle pulled up beside a quaint yet glowing location. It wasn't dark yet, but the lights were already twinkling. People were everywhere, clearly drawn to the place. Lenny's eyes widened when she realized where they were. "A floating restaurant. How do you know about this place?" she asked. "I pass by here often when I'm making produce deliveries, but I only ever thought of coming here with you," he said with a smile. "Really? You're not bringing other women here?" she teased. "I told you, I've had no other girlfriends." "Just you," Romeo replied, his face twisting into a mock pout. Lenny chuckled. All right. Let's go then. You asked too many questions," Romeo joked, taking her hand as they walked into the floating restaurant together. A waiter greeted them and handed them menus. Lenny let Romeo do the ordering. When the food arrived, they ate mostly in silence. Lenny kept sneaking glances at him, wondering why he brought her here. They hadn't made any plans to dine out. Why wasn't he with the kids? Why weren't the triplets here with them? Could this be a date? She tried not to assume. She told herself not to read too much into it. Still, she couldn't help the way she felt watching him now. She smiled faintly, caught in the moment, until Romeo caught her looking and gave her a playful wink. She nearly choked on her drink. Instead of getting annoyed, she found herself smiling even more. "What's the occasion? Is it your birthday?" she asked. "You know when my birthday is. I just wanted to treat you. Thank you for being such a great mom to our daughters," Romeo replied, his eyes sincere. Lenny smiled as he reached across the table and gently held her hand. "Here's your tip," she joked. "Just eat. Don't worry about the kids. We'll bring something home for them later," Romeo said. She nodded and returned to her meal. Suddenly, her appetite came back and she began to eat with gusto. An hour later, the motorcycle pulled up in front of her house, but the moment surprised them both. Standing by the gate with their arms crossed and disappointed expressions were three familiar faces. "Where were you?" "You went out and didn't take us with you," Julie said, clearly pouting. "We went on a date," Romeo replied quickly, "and where we went wasn't kid-friendly." Lenny elbowed him sharply for saying that. Romeo gave her a sheepish grin. "Don't be mad at us. We'll all go out together next weekend," Lenny offered. "Okay, Mommy," Mia said cheerfully. "As long as we see you happy, we're happy too." "Yeah," Rona added as they all walked in together, arms linked. Romeo headed to the kitchen with the girls, while Lenny went to her room to change. Just as she stepped out, she caught Lerma preparing to leave. She stopped her to hand over her salary, but Lerma refused. "Romeo already paid me earlier," she said. Lenny nodded as the older woman left. Feeling thirsty, she walked to the kitchen for a glass of water and found Romeo feeding the triplets. She smiled, watching how hands-on he was as a dad. Once the girls were done eating, they left the kitchen. Now it was just her and Romeo. She noticed he wasn't looking at her. He kept his eyes down. "You okay?" she asked. "No," he muttered. "What's wrong?" she asked again. He glanced up at her, then dead serious said, "Why didn't you wear a bra?" Lenny instantly covered her chest with her arms. She'd forgotten. She rarely wore one at home, and today her house dress was on the thinner side. Oh no. Out of everything you could have noticed, that's what got your attention? She muttered, frowning. Not my fault. That's what stood out, Romeo replied, trying not to laugh. I don't know what's wrong with you, she grumbled, blushing. All right, I should go. It's getting late, he said, chuckling as he stood up. Wait, before you go, take the money you gave Lerma. Use it for yourself, she offered. Romeo took a deep breath, looking at her carefully. He walked over, gently took her hand, and said, We have kids. We split the responsibilities now. I can help, even if I only sell vegetables. That's never been an issue for me. I don't care about what you do for a living, she said softly. But if you won't take it back, then thanks. Use it for the girls, for their allowance, Romeo said with a smile. All right, be careful heading home, Lenny said. Good night, Romeo replied, kissing her on the forehead before heading out. She didn't stop him. That kiss made her heart race, but it also made her smile. Once she heard the sound of his motorcycle fading into the distance, she walked to her room and flopped onto her bed, giggling like a teenager. 1 month passed. Lenny's life had become more balanced. Raising the triplets wasn't as hard anymore, because Romeo was always there to help. The girls were overjoyed. Every weekend, they got to go out and spend time with their dad. Romeo never lacked time or attention for them. During school days, he often stayed at the house, and it felt like old times. Their bond had strengthened. Romeo was extra sweet to her again, and there were more and more nights when he stayed over. Often, they'd fall asleep next to each other after a long day. Her admiration for him grew with each passing day. Her heart was overflowing. But whenever she was at work, jealousy clawed at her. It was all because of Jody. She couldn't get over the thought that Romeo and Jody might have been texting. Romeo had never confirmed it, but the thought irritated her to no end. One Saturday, Romeo came to pick up the triplets. They wanted to spend the day helping him at the market. As soon as they heard the sound of a tricycle outside, the girls jumped up. Is that Daddy? Julie asked excitedly. Yes, I'll go let him in, Lenny said, heading for the gate. You guys finish getting ready. We're not done getting dressed yet, Julie called out. You're just going to the market, not on vacation, Lenny teased. They're still in the shower, Mommy, Julie explained. All right, I'll go out first. When Lenny opened the gate, Romeo was already waiting with a plastic bag in hand. He smiled and kissed her on the cheek. Good morning, I brought something for you, he said cheerfully. She smiled back, a little shy. Thanks. What's this? Lunch, so you don't have to cook today, Romeo said. Then he pulled something else from behind him. 3 red roses, freshly picked. Her face lit up as she accepted them. What's with the flowers? She asked, flustered but clearly pleased. Passed by a flower shop this morning, and you popped into my head, Romeo answered smoothly. Good thing you thought of me, not someone else, she teased. There's only you, he said seriously. Then, without asking, he kissed her and walked inside. Lenny was left speechless, her heart pounding. When she entered the house, the triplets were ready to go. Are you coming with us, Mommy? Mia asked. No, I've got work to do, Lenny answered, still flustered from the kiss. She avoided Romeo's gaze, knowing he was watching her. You sure? Maybe you just don't want to admit you want to come, Romeo teased. Whatever, you better go. The market will be crowded and you haven't even opened your stall yet, she said, flustered. If you get bored, feel free to drop by, Romeo said, grinning. Sure, Lenny answered quickly. She let him hug and kiss her again before they left. No matter how much she tried to deny it, her feelings for Romeo had only grown stronger. She had no idea how to hide it anymore. And now Romeo had a secret. He'd enrolled in university. He didn't want to tell Lenny until he had something to show for it. There was no relationship between them yet, just a connection through their kids. So he kept it to himself. His classes started next month, and he signed up for evening classes so he could sell vegetables in the morning and still drop off and pick up the kids from school. He could do it. For them. When they arrived at the market, the girls excitedly helped him open the stall and arrange the vegetables. People stared at them, surprised. Fellow vendors whispered and asked who the girls were. Everyone thought Romeo was still single. He had no time to explain, so he just let them wonder. "People here are so nosy, Daddy. They're all staring," Rona whispered. "They're just surprised because you're beautiful, smart, and polite," Romeo replied. "Well, we do take after someone," Rona said proudly. Romeo smiled and patted her head. After setting everything up, Romeo went to buy breakfast for the girls. When he returned, his mood instantly changed. Jody was there, chatting with the triplets. "What are you doing here, Jody?" Romeo asked flatly. She smiled sweetly. "Stopped by to buy some meat. Figured I'd come say hi." Romeo didn't smile back. "They're new hires. I pay them well." The girls frowned, clearly not amused. They glared at Jody like they didn't welcome her presence. "So, how have you been?" she asked, brushing her hair behind her ear. "You don't reply to my messages anymore." "I've been busy. I don't really use my phone while I'm working," Romeo replied, his tone cold. Thankfully, a crowd of customers arrived, and Jody left soon after. The girls weren't happy. "Daddy, who was that? Your girlfriend?" Julie asked. "Number she works with your mum," Romeo answered. "Then why did she say you stopped replying to her texts? Sounds like you were close," Mia followed up. "She asked for my number once. I barely replied," Romeo said. "She totally likes you, Daddy. It's obvious," Rona muttered, rolling her eyes. "Let's stop talking about her. I don't want to get on your mom's bad side. She might get jealous," Romeo said. "She would get jealous even if you guys aren't together anymore," Mia said. "Yeah, but I love your mom," Romeo said, smiling. "Then delete that woman's number," Julie demanded. Okay, Romeo said, laughing as he pulled his phone out. He deleted the number. It wasn't even saved. An hour passed, and Romeo didn't get a break because the stall was packed with customers. But he didn't mind, especially with his daughters so eager to help. Meanwhile, Lenny stayed home, doing laundry and taking a nap. She rarely got to rest during workdays. In the afternoon, she cooked dinner so it would be ready when the girls got home. When she heard them singing and laughing as they arrived, she stepped out of the kitchen. But as she did, she heard the sound of Romeo's motorcycle leaving. "Where's your dad?" she asked. "He left already, Mommy. Just dropped us off," Rona said. Lenny's expression soured. He hadn't even said goodbye. "Did he say where he was going?" she asked. "Number he didn't tell us," Mia replied. Lenny's thoughts immediately turned to Jody. What if he went to see her? She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "All right, go get changed. It's dinner time," she told them. The girls went to their room, but Lenny couldn't sit still. She paced in the living room, hoping Romeo would come back. But deep down, jealousy ate away at her. She'd assumed they were reconnecting. She thought maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance. But what if Romeo was just being nice because of the kids? What if she was the only one hoping for more? "Mommy, what are we eating?" one of the girls asked. "Chicken adobo," Lenny replied, forcing a smile. "Should we wait for Daddy?" Mia asked. "Number." He's probably not coming back, Lenny said quietly. She had no appetite. It felt like her heart was being squeezed tight. The girls joined her in the kitchen and helped set the table. Lerma wasn't around since it was the weekend, so it was just them. "Mommy, did you know Daddy was texting with your co-worker Jody?" Rona asked out of nowhere. Lenny's grip tightened on her utensils. So it was true. "She came by the market and asked Daddy why he wasn't texting her back," Julie added. "Don't worry, Mommy. Daddy didn't care about her. He even deleted her number in front of us," Mia said. Lenny exhaled deeply, trying to calm herself. She couldn't let jealousy take over. It would only hurt her. "Daddy said he didn't want you to get jealous because he loves you," Julie added, beaming. Lenny smiled without realizing it. Maybe it was true. Maybe he still did. Another month went by, and Lenny grew increasingly downhearted. Romeo hadn't been around as much. He didn't drop by the house like before, even when bringing the girls home. In the mornings, she left early for work, so they didn't cross paths at all. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was going on. Romeo was busy, distant. Her suspicions flared again. Was it because of Jody? She didn't want to ask and risk being rejected or embarrassed. She'd even started avoiding Jody at the office. She couldn't stand being around the woman anymore, especially after suspecting something had gone on between her and Romeo. Lenny now saw Jody not just as a flirt, but as a threat. Jody wasn't helping either. She was acting smug, making comments like she was in love and had a new boyfriend. Lenny couldn't prove anything, but it got under her skin. One afternoon, Lenny's heart skipped a beat. As she stepped outside the office building, Romeo was there, waiting, smiling like nothing had changed. She looked behind her to check if he was smiling at someone else, but no, she was the only one there. "What are you doing here?" she asked, the edge in her voice betraying her annoyance. Romeo grinned and pulled her into a tight hug. "I missed you, and I know why you've been so upset. Don't be mad. I came here for you, not that girl you're jealous of." Lenny tried to pull away, but Romeo gently cupped her face and pinched her nose. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, trying to sound aloof. "Let's just go." Romeo laughed but let go. Her scowl made it clear she wasn't playing around. He knew she'd been bothered about Jody texting him, and she wasn't hiding it well. "I know you're jealous. I know about the texts between me and Jody. But do you really think I'd trade you for someone else?" Romeo asked, smirking. "Whatever, that's your life," Lenny replied. Romeo chuckled again. Before she could respond, he leaned in and kissed her on the lips, then started up the motorcycle. Lenny glanced around, worried someone had seen them, but everyone was busy, no one had noticed. Minutes later, they were on the road, heading home, or so she thought. But then the motorcycle turned in a different direction. "Where are we going now?" she asked. "We have to make a stop first," Romeo replied. Soon, they pulled into the parking lot of a university. Lenny's brows knit together. "Why are we here?" she asked. "This is where I go to school. This is why I've been so busy," Romeo said, his tone firm. "And all this time, you thought something else." Lenny stared at him, stunned. She had no idea he'd gone back to school. And here she was, letting jealousy poison her thoughts. "I'm sorry, I didn't know. I didn't mean to doubt you," she said, shaking her head. She stepped off the bike and turned to him. Romeo got off too and gently took her hand. "It's okay. I get it. I just want you to know. You're the only one I love. I went back to school because I want to be worthy of you. I don't want to feel like I'm not good enough anymore. I want to give you and the girls a better life," he said emotionally. "I don't care about that, Romeo. I don't care about money. What matters is that we love each other. I see how hard you're trying. You're there for the girls. That means everything," Lenny said, her voice shaking with emotion. "Thank you, Lenny. I love you so much," Romeo said. "I love you too, Romeo," she replied. He pulled her into a tight embrace. Both of them smiled, holding each other close. Their hearts spoke louder than words. They didn't need to start over, because they both knew what they felt was real. Another month passed, and their relationship was stronger than ever. Romeo had moved into Lenny's house and was now staying there full-time. The triplets couldn't be happier having both their parents under one roof. Even Lerma was overjoyed. They were finally back together. One morning, Lenny woke up and found herself snuggled close to Romeo, who had his arms wrapped around her. "Where are you going?" he asked sleepily. "Work," Lenny replied. He pulled her back down onto the bed. She laughed as she landed on his chest. "You're heavy," he groaned playfully. "You're the one who pulled me," she replied, frowning. "I just don't want you to leave." "Why don't you call in sick today?" Romeo asked. Lenny leaned in and gave him a quick kiss on the lips, but he grabbed her face gently and deepened the kiss. He rolled on top of her, but before anything else could happen, someone knocked on the door. She immediately pulled away, and Romeo groaned in frustration. "Seriously?" "Every time," he muttered. She laughed and stood up. "Looks like fate isn't on your side this morning." As she left the room, she called out, "You'll get your moment." Eventually. 2 weeks later, Lenny rushed home after working overtime. Today was Romeo's birthday. She had a gift in hand and hoped she wasn't too late. When she arrived at the house, she was surprised to see red balloons tied to the front gate. She paid the cab driver and got out. As she stepped onto the lawn, Jody came out carrying a red rose and handed it to her. "What is all this?" Lenny asked. Jody smiled. "No idea. Your boyfriend invited me." Confused, Lenny walked further into the yard and spotted Bee holding a giant teddy bear. "What's going on?" she asked Bee. "I saw Jody outside." "Don't look at me," Bee said. "Your boyfriend invited me too. It's his birthday, right?" Lenny looked around the yard. There were colorful balloons everywhere, lining the flower beds. As she continued walking, she found Lerma carrying a wrapped present. "Do you know what's going on?" Lenny asked. "No idea. The birthday boy planned everything," Lerma replied. Arms full of gifts, Lenny kept walking until she reached the backyard. There, she froze. The triplets stood smiling, holding up a banner that read, "Will you marry me?" To the side, Romeo knelt on one knee, looking up at her. "I'll ask again. Will you marry me, Lenny?" he said. Tears filled her eyes. "Yes, I'll marry you, Romeo." He stood and placed the ring on her finger, then kissed her gently on the lips. Applause erupted behind them. Jody and Bee had come up from behind, smiling brightly. "I'll give you your present later," Lenny said, laughing. "Are we having a party?" "Of course. I don't even need a present. Your answer was enough," Romeo said. "I love you, honey," Lenny whispered. "I love you too, honey," Romeo replied. "Hold on, I need to greet my girls," Lenny said. "Go ahead, I'll check on the food," Romeo replied. She walked toward Bee and Jody, smiling. Jody was the first to hug her. "Congratulations, Lenny. I'm sorry for giving you a hard time," Jody said. "Thank you," Lenny said, smiling sincerely. She didn't need any more explanations. She understood what Jody meant. Bee hugged her tightly. "I'm so happy for you. Congratulations. We better be your bridesmaids." "You better be," Lenny replied. They all laughed and headed into the house to eat. That night, Lenny made sure to thank Lerma. "You've been like a sister to me. Thank you for everything," she said. "You're welcome, always," Lerma replied with a warm smile. Later, they all gathered for Romeo's birthday dinner. Once the guests left and the triplets were tucked in bed, Lenny handed Romeo her gift. He was so happy he picked her up and twirled her around. Thank you, Lenny. I'll never stop loving you. I'll keep taking care of you and the girls forever, Romeo said. I'll always love you too, Lenny replied. A few months later, Romeo and Lenny got married. As promised, Bea and Jody were bridesmaids. The two were even more thrilled because Romeo had invited his single college friends to be groomsmen, possible matches for them. Lenny couldn't have been happier. She had married the love of her life, the father of her children, and of course, her adorable daughters were flower girls, and already excited to welcome their soon-to-arrive twin siblings.